Welcome to the Crystal Practice Management Admin Deep Dive Training. This is the second video in a series of videos designed to explain the various sections in the admin area, which is located at the top of Crystal to the right of Records. My name is Adam, and in this training I will be discussing the Admin Company section. Accessing the admin area is done by clicking on the Admin button at the top of the screen. When the admin area opens, you will be immediately brought to the first section called Billing, which was discussed in the Admin Billing Deep Dive video. To access the next section called Company, click on the Company button located under the Billing button. As you can see, there is a lot in the Company section. The Company section gives you the ability to import your company logo, adjust the information in the top title bar and bottom status bar, enter your practice name, address, and various contact numbers. You will also be able to set and adjust a number of important features in your Crystal Practice Management system using the tabs below your company information. To begin, let's first discuss how to import your company logo. Your company logo can be in the JPEG, BMP, PNG, and TIFF file formats. Crystal does have restrictions on the size of the imported image. The image cannot be bigger than 300 by 114 pixels. Once you have resized the image, you will need to press the Change Logo button. This will open a window allowing you to search for your logo. You will need to highlight the file you want to import and then press the OK button to import the file into Crystal. If you are not able to resize the logo, please email your logo to info@crystalpm.com. One of our technicians will resize and email the logo back to you. To the right of your company logo, you will see two fields that are labeled Top Title Info and Bottom Status Bar Info. These fields allow you to modify the information at the top and bottom of Crystal. To do this, you will need to press the Fields button next to the appropriate field you wish to modify. This will open a window with different variables that you can select from. Underneath your logo, you will see fields that allow you to enter in your practice name, address, city, state, and zip code. To the right of that is a field for your phone and fax numbers. The information you enter into these fields will auto-populate box 32 and 33 on your insurance claim forms. This will be discussed in further detail in the advanced billing training. Below your company information, you will see a number of tabs. Each tab has a number of checkboxes that allow you to set up functionality within the various sections of the Crystal Practice Management software. The first tab is the General Settings tab. This tab allows you to activate general settings within the Crystal Practice Management software. Let's take a look at the checkboxes in this section and what they do. The first checkbox is Display all signed-in patients, not just today's. This checkbox, when marked, displays all the patients currently marked as signed in, not just from today's schedule, but also from previous schedules. Next is the Under Add Additional File Set checkbox, Delete Local Copy. If this box is marked when scanning a file to the patient's account, Crystal will mark the local copy stored on your computer to be deleted. This deletes the file stored on your computer but allows the file to be accessed through the Crystal PM database. The next checkbox is Do not calculate last exam on recall list. If your recall templates use the last exam field, this option is recommended. When left unchecked, it searches each patient for the last time a full exam was billed out and the report runs much slower. Next is Always display recall after creating, editing an invoice. If this option is checked, recalls will always be displayed anytime the invoice is saved. If unchecked, recalls will only be displayed when a full exam is billed. Next is the Never display recall after creating an invoice. If this box is checked, Crystal will not display the recall window after creating and saving an invoice. The next box is Labels Printer Margin, left and top. This is used to adjust the label margins if an office is printing billing and address labels. Next is the Enable Time Clock checkbox. This enables the use of the time clock for your employees. Once this box is checked, you will need to navigate to the Admin Employees section to set which employees will actually use the time clock. The next checkbox is Enable Prompt Updating of Linked Patients. When enabled and changing patient demographic information, this will display a window asking to update any linked accounts. Next is the Auto Log Out Idle Time in Seconds. When enabled, this gives the user the ability to set when Crystal logs out after setting idle after a certain amount of time. Next is the Disable Auto Logout. This disables the auto logout due to inactivity in Crystal. Please note, auto logout is strongly recommended for security. The next checkbox is Remove Room Assignments from Signed-In Patients. This removes the Room Assignments column from the Sign-In list at the top of Crystal, making it smaller and giving you more space for other columns. Next is the Do Not Populate SSN on Online Patient Forms. This removes the Social Security number from being preloaded on online forms. The next checkbox is Prompt when closing Crystal PM. When this is enabled, this will prompt the user with a pop-up when the Crystal PM application is closing. The next checkbox is Disable Sign-In Sheet. This disables the sign-in sheet at the top of Crystal. This will allow a patient to see the screen without seeing any other patient information from the sign-in screen. The next checkbox is CL Integrations. Do not update order status. This disables contact ordering integrations to update the status of the contact lens order. If you are using a third-party messaging system for notifying users when contact lens orders are ready, this setting will help the third party from reading a status it is not familiar with set by the contact lens integration. Next is the CPM messaging Turn Off All Messaging. This turns off the instant messaging and mail features in Crystal. It is recommended to turn the setting off if you are not using these features. When enabled, Crystal will be slowed down by checking for messages based on the settings below. The next checkbox is CPM messaging allows sending to employees. This allows messages to be sent to specific employees. Next is the CPM messaging allows sending to computers. This allows messages to be sent to a computer instead of only an employee. The next sections are the mail refresh and instant message refresh rate. This allows your office the ability to set how often the Crystal Practice Management software checks for inter-office mail or instant messages generated from the Crystal Practice Management Message Viewer, which is accessed at the top of the screen in a section called Messages. Please keep in mind the refresh rate is set in seconds. The next section is HL7 facility type. HL7, or Health Level 7, refers to a set of international standards for transferring of clinical and administrative data between software applications used by various healthcare providers and makes sharing healthcare data easier and more efficient. The facility type allows your office to identify as one of the following facility types. The next tab is the Billing tab. In this tab, you will set your tax rate or rates and set your tax ID. You can also set a standard overage discount. This is used in conjunction with the overage and overage discount columns on the invoice. If insurance has been assigned to the invoice, the overage and overage discount columns appear. If an overage discount has been set here, and there is an overage listed in the overage column on the invoice, then Crystal will automatically calculate the patient responsibility after discount. Below the tax ID, you will notice that there are a number of tabs. The first of these tabs is the Invoice tab. The Invoice tab is used to set various functionality in the billing section of the Crystal Practice Management software. The first checkbox is Prompt for Delete of Routing Slip. When this is enabled, this allows the user to delete the routing slip when prompted to create an invoice in the billing section. Next is the lockout editing of invoices prior to date. This disables the ability to edit any invoice prior to the date set. Next is the prompt for transfer to other invoices when balance is negative. This prompts the user to transfer a patient credit into an invoice that has a balance. Next is the prompt for transfer to linked accounts when balance is negative. This prompts the user to transfer a patient credit into a linked patient's account that has an outstanding balance on an invoice. Next is the automatically display Make Payment screen after creating an invoice. This displays the Make Payment screen after creating and saving an invoice. Next is the prompt for upload of medical records when creating an invoice. This prompts the user if they would like to upload the medical record created for the day after creating and saving the invoice. The next checkbox is Prompt when creating an invoice with insurance and no diagnosis codes. This enables a prompt to warn the user when creating an invoice with insurance attached but no diagnosis codes are associated with the invoice. Next is the Only Set Provider on invoice if there is a medical record or an appointment for today's date. This enables a provider to be attached to an invoice only if the patient has a record or an appointment created for the current date of service. The next checkbox is Do not add sales tax to copays. This disables sales tax for copayments. The laws for this can vary state by state. Next is the Prompt when creating an invoice with insurance and no procedure. This enables a prompt to warn the user when creating an invoice with insurance attached but no procedure codes have been associated with the invoice. Next is the Do not prompt when creating an invoice to sign out patient. This disables the prompt asking the user to sign out the patient after creating and saving the invoice. The next checkbox is Do not prompt credit transfer when creating an invoice. This turns off the prompt to transfer credits from one invoice to another or to a linked patient account. Next is the Allow day of service to be different than invoice date. This enables the ability to edit the date when creating an invoice. The Inventory tab is next. The Inventory tab allows you to set specific inventory functionality that will be reflected in the billing section of Crystal when creating an invoice with the inventory items listed on the invoice. In the Inventory tab, you will see the Prompt Remove from Inventory from Invoice. When invoicing an item from inventory, the user will be prompted with a yes or no question to remove the item from inventory when the invoice is saved. When this box is unchecked, invoicing automatically removes the item from inventory once the invoice is saved. The next checkbox is Adding inventory item to invoice, allow free text. This allows free typing of inventory items whenever an item is not found in the inventory section of Crystal. Next is Hide UPC and name on printed invoices. When enabled, this disables printing of the UPC code and product name on printed receipts. The next tab is the Miscellaneous tab. Here you will see the Patient Receivable Report past due set to last payment. When enabled, this allows an office to track when the last time the patient made a payment to their account. This is typically used for offices that allow patients to pay balances using a payment plan. The next checkbox is Rename Insurance Write-Off to Provider Responsibility on Past Due. When enabled, this renames the term Insurance Write-Off to use Provider Responsibility on a past due report. The next checkbox is Include Sales Tax on CMS form. When enabled, this includes sales tax on the CMS form. This setting can vary state by state. Next is the Display Alerts for all patients with a balance. When enabled, this displays an alert for all patients with a balance and an amount. The next checkbox is All payments require category. This prompts the user to set payment details when creating a payment. This is highly recommended to have marked as it affects certain sales payment reports. Next is the Write-Off/Discount Only requires category. This prompts the user to set payment details when creating a discount. The next tab is the EDI tab. This tab is used to integrate TriZetto, Apex, Waystar, and Zermed. If you are using the Crystal Practice Management software in Canada, we also integrate with HLink, OHIP, and MHSAL. This tab will require your office to have an account with one of the listed vendors. This integration will be discussed in the Advanced Billing Training video and the Advanced Billing Training Guide. The CMS Form ANSI 5010 tab is next. This tab allows you to modify certain features related to insurance claim processing. This section is also used for the initial setup of electronic claims processing. The first checkbox in this area is Use CMS Form 212. This uses the latest version of the CMS form. This is required if you are located in the United States and accepting insurance. The next checkbox is Add support for batching secondary insurance. This adds support for batching secondary claims electronically. Some clearinghouses do not allow secondary claims to be batched. The next checkbox is CMS. Always set patient amount to 0. When enabled, this sets the patient amount to 0 on all CMS forms. The next checkbox is Set signature on file date to invoice date. This sets the signature on file to today's date on all CMS forms and ignores the date on file from the patient page. The next checkbox is Do not display prompt for claims added to batch. This disables the claim warnings when creating a CMS form. Next is the Increase CMS font size. This makes the font size larger and easier to read when printing. This may cause overlap with information outside of the boxes. The next checkbox is Do not prompt for CMS 1500 form when editing invoices. This disables the prompt that the CMS form may no longer be valid when editing invoices. Below that is the Group NPI facility. This is where you will enter your office's group NPI number. Next is the Use ANSI 5010 billing. This enables the ANSI 5010 format for insurance claims when filing to a clearinghouse. We will discuss this in further detail on the Advanced Billing Training video. The next tab is the Records tab. This allows you to modify various settings related to the Records section. The first checkbox is Do not automatically create new medical records. This disables the record page from automatically creating a new medical record and requires the user to click a button at the top of the screen to create a new record. Next is the Set blank medical records to No doctor assigned. This defaults all new medical records created to No doctor assigned instead of assigning a provider. The next checkbox is Use new drug Rx input. This enables the ability to select the drug from the Rx norm list of medications. When disabled, this allows free typing in text boxes instead. Having this box unchecked is preferred by most providers. The next checkbox is Use external pic editor. This enables the external image editor in the records section, which allows for more options but is more difficult to use. The next checkbox is Use new routing slip. This enables the newer version of the routing slip format. It is strongly recommended that this box is checked. Next is the Use old prompt PQRS. This displays the PQRS prompts within medical records. The next checkbox is Define meaningful use period. This defines the time period for meaningful use reporting and clinical quality measure reporting. The next checkbox is Disable ability to change EHR settings. This disables the option to scroll through the F9s with the scroll wheel of a mouse. Next is the Add appointment type to Old records button dropdown. This enables the appointment type associated with the visit to appear next to previous medical record drop-down visits. The next checkbox is always display F9 full list instead of filtered list. This always displays the full F9 list instead of only showing the F9 options that match text entered into the text boxes. Next is the versioning of medical record templates. When enabled, this shows previous medical records within the template they were created in instead of the current template. It is strongly recommended to have this box marked. Next is the Use Alternate ARRA template. This enables the Alternate ARRA tab in the medical record section. The next checkbox is Assign a default record for procedure on new medical records. This enables the ability to assign a default record for procedure when creating a new medical record. The next checkbox is Print SP and CL prescriptions onto an RX sheet. This is for New Jersey offices only. The law requires that prescriptions are printed onto a specific approved New Jersey prescription pad. Below that, you will see the FTC contact lens reporting section. The FTC contact lens reporting rule requires prescribers to request that their patients confirm that they have received their contact lens prescription and allows flexibility in the way the prescription and confirmation are provided. The FTC contact lens reporting section allows providers to set these options. The first checkbox in the FTC contact lens reporting section is the Add Correspondence note when printing, RX, or uploading. This adds a correspondence note whenever an RX is printed or uploaded to the patient portal. The next checkbox is Prompt for uploading of CLRX. This prompts the user to upload the contact lens prescription when leaving the records page. Next is the Display CLRX page. This displays the contact lens prescription page when leaving the records section. Please note this checkbox will only appear if the Prompt for uploading of CLRX checkbox has been checked. The next checkbox is Add Patient Signature Line to CLRX. This adds a patient signature line to the contact lens prescription. The next checkbox is Prompt to Scan in Signed CLRX. This enables a prompt asking the user to scan the contact lens prescription to the patient account. The next checkbox is Always Print 2 copies of the CLRX. This prints 2 copies of the contact lens prescription, one for the patient and one for the office. The next checkbox is Use ICD-10 codes in records. This uses the ICD-10 codes in the records page. Please note this is required in the United States. Next is the Turn off Medical Record Complete Incomplete options. This disables completion status on the medical records. Below that, you will see a checkbox that says Default New Medical Records to Complete. When this box is marked, every new medical record will be automatically defaulted to Complete. The next checkbox is Expand Previous History to Size of Screen. This sets the previous history drop-down to the size of the screen instead of the size of the field in the record section. The next tab is the Security tab. The Security tab is used to set the level of security in the Crystal Practice Management software. During the training phase, the level may be set to level 2, which does not require any user to log into Crystal using an employee-specific password. It is strongly recommended that after you have completed the training process in setting up Crystal, that you adjust the level from level 2 to level 1. This will mean that your employees will need to log into Crystal using employee-specific passwords. Those passwords can be set in the Admin Employees section, which will be discussed in a later video. The Turn on Emergency Access checkbox creates an employee labeled Emergency Access. This Emergency Access employee only has access to the records section without requiring a password to log in. The access to the records section is read-only when logging in as the Emergency Access employee. This option is required for meaningful use compliance. To the right of that checkbox, you'll see a button that says Firewall Exception 3306. The default port Crystal uses to communicate with the other computers that have Crystal installed is port 3306. This firewall exception allows you to set a rule allowing Crystal to communicate with other computers in the office using a different port number. The next tab is the Security 2 tab. The Security 2 tab is divided into two sections. On the left, you will see a section labeled Security Settings. This is used to change certain information in Crystal based on your practice type. Optometry is the default setting for this. In order to modify this setting, you will need to contact our technical support department or email info@crystalpm.com. On the right-hand side, you will see the Audit Log section. The audit log records entries anytime a patient's information, including name, is visible to the user. Many offices have noticed slower response times when this feature is on. If you are testing for meaningful use, then the audit log must be turned on. The next tab is the Locations tab. The Locations tab is designed for offices that have more than one location. This allows the offices to be linked together. In order to add multiple locations, you will need to reach out to our administrative department, who will get your office invoice for the multi-location setup. Once the setup fee has been paid for, our technical support department will assist in completing the multi-location setup. The Other Companies tab is next. The Other Companies tab is designed for offices that are reporting for meaningful use. This tab allows offices to add another organization to the continuity of care documents when another provider performed a procedure. The procedures and other companies are selectable from the Procedures grid in the Records section of Crystal. An office may need to add other companies to the continuity of care documents if an office needs to be listed as part of a hospital or some other eligible profession for the CCD report. The next tab is the TimeSync tab. The TimeSync tab was originally designed for certain cloud offices that needed to get their local time to sync with the cloud server's time. The functionality of this section has changed and is now used to allow your office to sync the Crystal application with the government official time server maintained by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which helps maintain coordinated universal time. It is strongly recommended to have this enabled. Having synchronized clocks is not only convenient but required for many distributed applications, including Crystal.